Hi, Marta. How are you?
Hi, Brian. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. And
Yeah, for
I'm
sure. And
excited
thank
people
you,
joining on a Friday.
everybody,
Yeah.
joining us this afternoon. Hopefully, for some of you, maybe on the East Coast, this is your last meeting before your weekend. For other West Coast folks like me, probably a couple more after this, but hopefully, this will be a fun part of your day. We want to spend a little time talking about electronic charting, specifically electronic charting through HST. Really, the meat of the presentation is going to be Marta sharing her screen and getting in the application itself. But we did want to take just a couple minutes up front to kind of set the table a little bit and talk about HST's approach to both the ASC space as well as our approach to charting within the ASC space. So I'm going to go through just a couple of slides. I'll be very quick, and then we'll get into Marta's portion of the presentation, which is actually in the technology itself, which I know is why all of you are here. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. There's some that we may just answer in line in the chat, and if it's something that we can answer live, I'll kind of keep an eye on that as we go, and more often than not, Marta's going to have the answer. We'll go from there. So really just to kind of kick off on HST's point of view within the ASC space, we've been around for 20 plus years offering technology specifically to ASCs, starting with practice management, and then as needs and technology requirements have grown, have put together a full suite of products that can help manage an ASC end to end. And one of the things that we've seen, especially recently, probably starting before, but definitely coming out of the pandemic, is the world has really changed for ASCs. Originally, it was if you build it, they will come type philosophy. It was a better, more efficient way to do things. Physicians preferred it, patients preferred it. But we're really starting to see a separation between high performing ASCs and middle of the road ASCs. And really, the outside factors that affect that are ones that you are all very familiar with. The increasing competition and consolidation within the space, being able to take on higher acuity cases within your facilities. Still, even coming out of the pandemic, struggles with staffing and hiring. The cost of everything has gone up, with the exception of reimbursements. Reimbursements have stayed stagnant, just creating a much more cutthroat and competitive environment. So really what we see at HST, with the ability to work with close to 1,700 ASCs within the United States, over 16,000 users of our platform in various shapes or forms, really where we see the best ASCs performing is ones that have taken on proactive operations and really shifting from kind of reactive mindset to really focusing on both technology, people, and all three: technology, people, and processes, to better run and be more efficient and really be data driven within their centers. We're going to talk specifically about electronic charting today. We'll show you some of the benefits and the tools within the electronic charting. One thing that we do for a lot of our customers, and please reach out if we can help you and you're eChart curious, we can actually work with kind of your specific case volume and your specific costings within your surgery centers to really help you develop a framework for a return on investment when it comes to the investment in electronic charting and converting from paper to electronic charting. This is a number of statistics from research groups that really show the benefit of moving from a very manual process, a paper-driven process, to an electronic process. And we'll kind of talk through what drives a lot of these numbers. I think long story short here, or the too long didn't read here, is many setters see a reduction in both cost when it comes to paper storage and people, and really see a spike in efficiency, especially when it comes to chart completion once they've switched to electronic charting. So now we'll just touch on a couple of the administrative features. I'm going to hit them at a high level, and then this is what Martha's going to show when she jumps into the system. One of the coolest things about HST charting, if you've ever used a system like Epic or a system like Cerner, the charts are generated in a much more fluid fashion. Once a case is scheduled in HST, the chart's automatically pulled from the physician preferences and preference cards for those specific procedures. And that includes supplies and implants utilized in that procedure. You always have the ability to edit those on the back end, but once a patient hits the ASC schedule, that chart's automatically generated through HST. There's no codes to remember. There's nothing that you're building on the front end. The chart's there and ready for you to start interacting with that for that specific patient and that specific case. The charts are, again, automatically created once scheduled, and that includes a kind of a swath of information pertaining to that patient and that case. It includes orders, discharge instructions, and any other unique details that the physician requires. With our charting platform, which is built for tablet first, you always know where a patient is during the duration of a stay within the center and their current caregiver. As the chart's being updated, as the patient's making their way and interacting with everybody in the center on the date of service, that gets updated in terms of our patient locator. So it's good to always know where a specific patient is through your facility over the course of their visit. What's really nice, especially from an administration standpoint, is every chart completion is tracked within HST, and then that's available through a very specific view, both for the individual clinicians, but also from an administrative standpoint. So you have a holistic view of your progress and the progress on each individual chart in real time, which becomes very helpful in saving you from charting parties or any sort of end of week get-togethers where we've got to go look at anything that's incomplete and keeping those up to date. Those all get surfaced to you on a nightly basis through our task manager. Quick charting is a very fun tool. This allows you to update any sort of non-patient information on routine tasks. If there's a number of procedures that I'm sure you're all familiar with that are always going to get the same updates as the patient moves through your center, those can be auto-populated through quick charting, and Marta can show you what that looks like. But that definitely saves on any sort of take home or pre-charting, things that we know never happens, but sometimes happens, and can now be done through technology and automation. Pinning charts is very helpful. Obviously, in a number of your centers, you're working with more than one patient over the course of a day. And so it's very easy right there on your tablet to pin the patients that you're currently working with, go directly to their chart, pick up right where you left off, and it allows clinicians to manage multiple charts over the course of a patient's visit. Concurrent charting is another very good one. I'm sure everyone's had the experience of being locked out of a chart or seeing that somebody's editing a chart or making an edit and not being sure if that edit took, or that bad feeling in your stomach when you go back and say, gosh, I want to make sure that all that information was captured. HST eChart allows for true concurrent charting. Multiple people can be in a chart at once, probably going to be in different sections of the chart given their role within the center, but all updates are highlighted. Multiple people can be within the chart at the same time making their updates. Everything's saved and everything's up to date with an audit trail and an audit log. You can see the purple icon on the slide here. This shows anybody charting that somebody else has gone in and updated that block or that section of the chart. And you can easily click on it and review what they've updated with a name and a timestamp to see exactly when it was done. And one of the areas that we'll spend some time on today, Marta will show, is the robust reporting that you can get not only out of HST, but that are very specific to their EMR specific reports. We've listed a number here, also included normothermia reports, diabetes reporting, everything that you'd want to know as an administrator and a clinician as it ties to the electronic charting platform. We have a number of customer stories. I'd include anybody that's eChart curious or wants to hear from other folks in the space that have utilized HST charting or electronic charting in general within their facilities. We can line you up with a number of other administrators, other clinicians that have gone through the transition of paper charting to HST charting, or actually even Epic charting to HST charting, and they can tell you all the ways that it's made their life easier and made their life better. We highlighted a couple of stories here, the Center for Spine Surgery in Wilmington and Euro Partners, and there are a couple key themes that you'll see. Charting adoption was very quick and easy. Chart completion and op notes completed within a day or even same day are all things that a number of the centers that have converted to HST electronic charting will share often. So enough of me talking. Let's go to the real expert on the call. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Marta to actually show you what it looks like within the system itself.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. And I do have to say, as much as I love a party, that charting party sounded awful. I didn't sound like something I wanted to do at all. But yeah, fortunately, with eChart, I don't have to. So that said, I'm going to start where a lot of you all are probably comfortable, and hopefully you can see my screen. But I'm starting with the preference card. And if you're used to the preference card, you're probably used to this tab, which has some information. It's based on physician and procedure. You might even be using your supply items, or you might not. But one of the things that you would not have had is this column right here, which says area. And that area feeds directly over to eChart to tell it, hey, this supply is used in this particular area. And then the third tab here, this EHR General, because our preference cards are the bridge between eChart and practice management. So even though it's one system, it's kind of got two faces. So we still have to have that neck that's has both faces there. But here you're going to see, and those faces are your user interface, what you're seeing, because the people in practice management, they don't need to see the same things clinical folks see, even though it's sharing the same database behind. But here on this EHR General tab, Brian mentioned that you can have multiple charts, and we know which one to open in eChart. And I'm going to pop over to eChart in just a minute, I promise. But right here, you saw this on the slide. But if I suddenly said, you know what, my meniscus, I've been using this ortho chart, but maybe I'd just rather use just kind of a very basic chart of some other sort, I could look down through and do this. Now, one of the things, I came from the implementations team. During implementations is we help you build your charts, and we also help to make sure that if you need different charts, you have them so they show up in a list like this here. So that's part of your implementation process and training your super users. But besides the chart knowing, there's the physician orders, anesthesia orders, discharge instructions. You want to save even more money, no dictation if you use our operative templates, which are included, so you can have those as well. But all of this information is being communicated over to eChart before that chart is ever opened, as soon as this case is scheduled based on this preference card. So with that, I'm going to jump over here into eChart. And just to let you know, I'm in eChart in two different places because I want to show you that concurrent charting. But with that, I came into the eChart schedule, and you can see I have different colors to the appointments. Those indicate where the patient is in the process. Well, if you don't know those off the top of your head, or I'm just going to say this, if you're like me and you're not a fan of this Easter egg purple, colors are chosen by your facility. So you get to choose what those colors are. But the patient locator up here in the top tells you where all those patients are and gives you a clue by telling you that color so that we can see Sally arrived in registration. Fortunately, we're running behind. She's been out there for 3 hours. That's awful. But we can immediately look through, and you can choose whether or not you want your discharge patients on here. But I left Timothy Jones on here just so you can see it. But you can tell if there's anything, if they're ready for anesthesia, ready for the OR, how long they've left an area, who's last received the patient. And this patient locator tab is often used on a monitor up in the OR area so that, when you're coming out of an OR room, you can kind of look and see. Now, I've chosen to have the full patient name here, but we give you many, many different options for what you want to show there, whether you want just maybe initials or last name only, et cetera, for PHI, depending on where that monitor would be. But again, this just becomes a nice little color code for you, gives you some information. When you log into eChart initially, and the login is up here in the right-hand corner, it says hello and your name. And when Brian mentioned that this is tablet-based, part of the reason we do that is you don't want to pick up somebody else's tablet. You always want to check for your own name, and you have it there. But it also, depending on the user, first of all, it's the same user ID and password that you use for practice management. It's not, it's all one. But with that, you have different responsibilities. So I'm in here as a nurse today. But if I were to come over and show you this other view, I logged in here as a physician. I logged in here as a surgeon. Notice I'm not seeing those other cases. All throughout the system, we make things easy for the surgeons, so that adoption rate is very, very quick because we want them to be a proponent of the system. We want them to make your life easier so that you're not putting those paper charts together, but also they don't need to see everything else. They need a clean view of what they have. Brian also mentioned you could pin a chart. So right here, we have Andy's chart pinned, but I'm going to show you something because I have it pinned over here as well. But I'm going to come into Andy's chart as a nurse. And when I come into Andy's chart, and I'm going to talk about task manager when we come out of here, but when I'm looking at this, I am ready to take him to the OR. And so I come here to the OR and I'm looking, and I've got his allergies, and oh no, I have a consent alert. Andy signed it, I signed it, but Dr. Bailey hasn't signed it. Well, I pinned my chart right here, but if I pop over, if you remember, I came into a different screen. But if I come over where Dr. Bailey is and she's pinned that chart, it brings her into the physician workflow. She doesn't have to go searching for what she needs, and she can come down and she can even, we have multiple ways to make sure your charts are complete, but she can come down to that consent and she can sign it. Two things just happened there, folks. One, as soon as she signed it, that consent alert just came off. So now we know that those consents are signed and we're ready to go. So now I'm switching back to nurse. There's that purple halo that Brian mentioned, because Dr. Bailey was in here at the same time. I get this purple halo letting me know that it's done and my consent alert's off. So I'm good to go. I'm good to room this patient in. And notice this purple's here because it said, hey, you have your consent, you can room them in now. So that purple halo shows up, not just the area that they signed, but any area that's impacted. That becomes really important. If somebody adds an allergy, you want to know it for every med. So a lot of safety factors built in here too. I'm going to go ahead and room Andy in, and I'm going to say he came back by OR bed, and I'm the receiving staff. But here's a late start reason, and I'm going to show you a very cool report for that. You get to set what the reasons are. You get to set how long you consider late. We're going to say the cases were out of order. Okay. If I want to get rid of that purple halo, I just click on it and I'm good. Now, when we were talking about, things going through, one of the big things for administration is making sure charts are completed. And like I said, that party sounded awful. But here you can come in. I've got a green check letting me know that this is complete. I have this to let me know if I'm complete. I can pin that chart so I can come back to it later. But I also, in this case, I want to use that quick chart. I'm in the OR, I'm doing a knee case. I know that I use the same positioning, the same fire safety, et cetera, every time. This little Q allows me to apply a quick chart, and quick chart does not, and I always like to say this because I worked in quality and risk management, no patient assessments come from the quick chart, and everything can be reviewed. Everything has to be reviewed and can be modified. Also requires that room in. So you're never pre-charting. You have that information, but I'm going to go ahead and use this knee and go ahead and apply that. And when I apply that, you'll notice my percent complete does not go up. But if I scroll down through, I already have a bunch of things checked that were not checked there before. But maybe I'm not using that headrest. That patient said it was uncomfortable. I'm going to go ahead here. So I'm updating, even though that information came in for me. I still have to review it. But the time that this saves for your intraoperative staff is huge, because all those cases that, if you have eye cases, pain cases, GI cases, anything that has to go quick, this saves a huge amount of staffing time. Also, I want to say that this information goes back over, and we go to reports, I'm going to show you, it goes back to practice management. So if you've been filling in information in practice management, eChart's going to do that for you. But we're going through, and now we can come down and see, what's filled in, what's not filled in. I can come here and check and see what I need to do. And I'm going to put an incision start time in front of you because I want you to see it when we go over there. So I'm putting in, it's 15:22. Y'all saw me do it. Okay. So we're coming into the chart. We know we can come in based on our user profile where we need to be. We can pin the charts. We have it checked. We have this. But then here in eChart Home, and when the chart's pinned, it shows up down here, down here in the left-hand corner. Brian mentioned Task Manager. So every night Task Manager runs and looks to see if anything got forgotten. So even though we're giving you multiple ways to make those charts complete, we have this. And so right here, I can see if I have incomplete workflows. Now, this is my personal task list, but as an administrator, you get to look here and see what everybody's task list is. So if you have, maybe somebody's having trouble completing it. Or I recently had a site that they had one doctor one day forget his operative notes. So they hit him the next day and he had them all signed. The chart completion, I recently did an implementation 100% on the first day, 100%. So I love that. So task manager here, you can also assign tasks for the surgeons for peer review. So that's the way that they get to see those cases they wouldn't normally have access to. So I love all of this. I love eChart. And I was telling Lindsay, but when I get really excited, it's when we go to the reporting, because here all reporting is done in practice management. And if you've been using practice management very long, you've probably been using case history and coming in and filling out some of this information. Well, I'm going to refresh this here. I'm just going to come to a different chart for a second. And then I'm going to come back. We'll just go to this chart for a second. And then we're going to come back to Andy's. And I just want you to notice there's that incision time. That quickly it came over, you have it. So any reports that you were running, I'm going to go ahead and close that. But when you were running reports, you probably were using some of your clinical reports or operations reports, but you had to put that information in. You don't have to anymore. All that data is there for you. But in addition, you have 30 new reports. You have 30 new reports. And if you're counting, there's 29 here. There's one that lives in data export I have pulled up to show you. But we have reports to help you with regulatory compliance. Normothermia is always a big one, a big favorite of mine that I like to use. This task manager report. This task manager report allows you to not only just, we saw that you can see everybody's, but if you want to look if there's a particular task, you want to look if it's a particular person, you want to look for only incomplete tasks and workflows, you have the ability to do it here. We also have all kinds of logs. We have an in-house specimen log, and I took some time and pulled some of these up for you just so I wouldn't waste your time running them. But for example, here's our late start when we talked about this. I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can see it, because boy, I'm going to start looking for any trends or patterns and giving this information to my board. Yeah, if my anesthesia team's not showing up on time, they need to know. The normothermia report, and this report, for CMS, if you've been keeping logs, this is literally a 2-minute report once a year to send this to CMS. I get so excited about this one. Not to mention, you could drill down on anybody that was a no and see what was going on. So I don't wait to the end of the year. I run it before. Let's see. Oh, in-house lab tests so that you can compare this to your, so that you have it for CLIA, so that you can say, yeah, we did X number of blood glucoses. But if I'm looking at blood glucoses, I'm going to use that for a QAPI project, and I'm going to take this diabetes report. And this diabetes report looks at everybody that's diabetic to make sure that our policy says they get a blood glucose beforehand. Did everybody? Well, nope, this person didn't. Why not? So you get rid of all that time that you were spending before just trying to keep up with the information. And now you have information you can actually use to make your life better, easier, get those board reports out, stop those chart parties, and hopefully get home in time for dinner, which really is what we're all trying to do. So Lindsay, I know I'll talk about this all day, but I want to give time for some questions or any specific reports people want. I want to make sure we hit that.
Yeah, a couple of questions. So a few questions around, is this cloud-based, and does it matter what type of tablet you're using?
No, you can use anything that will process. We have people who are using both iPads, Surface Pros, any tablet. It does have to have Chrome. So as long as you can put Chrome on it and you can an iPad, you can use that. I always like to say this because I'm using a laptop just because it's easy for me. The only difference in view will be you won't have this gray side if you're using a tablet. This banner will adjust to the size, but you won't have the little gray part. And otherwise, you're seeing a pretty nice view on a tablet. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Another question around any recommendations to help your staff or physicians adopt the chart faster?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, we do mimic your chart. And one of the things, when you're looking at me scrolling here and I'm looking at this information, first of all, this is all most physicians have to fill in. And so it makes them very, very happy. They have very little that they have to go in and complete. And so that kind of takes away that fear factor. But we also put the charts in order similar to what you're used to using, and we use the same language that you use. So for example, here, I'm calling it PACU, but if you call it post-op, we're going to call it post-op. You know, when we're building these out, we have a lot of, and we teach you to do it too. You shouldn't have to wait for us to do it 6 months from now. But we want that language to be similar because learning a new software shouldn't be learning a new language. We got Duolingo for that. That's a whole different thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Marta, you'd mentioned earlier potentially picking up somebody else's tablet. Can you talk for a second about over-the-shoulder signing as long as
Oh,
we're on to the physician workflows?
yes, because that is really helpful, right? So if I'm down here in Sally's chart, we'll go to a completely different chart. And we go to pre-op, and we'll just be here in pre-op. I'm looking here. If I go to that consent, and you notice I'm not scrolling for everything, I'm just popping to it and getting there. But I'm standing there with the doc and we get Sally to sign it. Now I'm using a laptop, so this is my mouse, not great. They would be using their finger or stylus. And then I sign it. And then I have, Dr. Tisdale here. I don't want her to have to go run and log in. So I say, Dr. Tisdale, I need you to sign. So I just pull this up before she ever, and I hand her I literally hand her my device. And then she just signs. And now we have, and this is another one, people spend so much time looking for signatures and date and time, but all of our signatures are automatically date and timed. So that, all those little sticky notes everybody puts out, gone. You're going to save money on those alone, right?
That's great. Awesome. Yeah. I think we're right about at time. Last question. This one's for me. What's your favorite report?
Ooh, oh, my favorite. I do have a favorite report. It's this E63009. It's a medication classification, and I love this report. You can pull it by the administer, by who administered, by the ordering provider, by type of drug, by the area where the drug was administered. I had the unfortunate privilege of working in a facility that had drugs diverted. And I said, if I had had this report, I would have picked it up so much quicker because I would have seen that I had somebody administering a lot more drugs to patients than we thought. But you can look at this. I have it pulled up for fentanyl, but I had somebody literally yesterday ask me, hey, how would I know what anesthesia drugs were administered yesterday? Boom. It was a 30-second report. And they had every anesthesia drug that had been administered the day before. So very cool.
That's a fun one.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I know this was a quick, short demo hitting at the kind of high level from an administrator point of view. As we mentioned, it's recorded, so we'll send this out to everyone afterwards, and reach out if you want a more deep dive demo or if you want help with your ROI and understanding your business case. We have lots of tools to help everybody who is curious about EMRs and where to go for their facility. Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you.